Juey from Juey Jumbo, or I am Juey. I am going to today show you how to do what we call moss stitch. I've picked this because it's a really easy stitch, and it's for anyone that can knit and purl, but gives you a lovely textured finish. We're going to use a 12mm needle, which my needles, these are Juey Junior needles. They are bamboo, but I actually put on these amazing points and polish them up, so they're super easy to use. They're a good long length because I'm an underarm knitter, and we're using my yarn Juey Merino chunk, super chunky, but you can use any other super chunky or any other needles that are a 12mm. So what we're going to do today to start off with, I'm going to show you how to cast on. Now, casting on, I use the thumb method. For this, what I'm showing you, there are absolutely lots and lots of different ways of casting on, but this is just one that I like to use because it's quite a nice stretchy edge to it. So we're going to cast on let's say we'll start with 10 stitches, so we can then, you can always add on to these stitches. It's a really easy stitch and it's a flat stitch, so it doesn't curl up at the edges. So it's great for blankets and headbands, hats, things like that. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start with a slip knot. So anywhere you want to make a slip knot, but this is what I do. There's no fast rules on how to do it, and if there is a rule, I'll break it anyway. I mind my own way of doing it, so that's me. So then we're going to actually add more on from using our thumb. So you can see all the stitches are going to be coming from this strand of yarn. So I would say that's enough for 10. But if you wanted to find another way of doing it, I have been told there is a way of finding out by just wrapping the stitch round twice. So you wrap it round twice to count one stitch. So that would be 2, that would be 3. And you could go on like that, but I just guess. And if you have a little bit extra, that's brilliant because you can sew up with it. So we've got our slip stitch on. So now I'm holding, this is the tail end we call it. I'm holding this with my left hand, and the yarn that I use to wrap the stitch is in my right hand. If you're left-handed, you can do that the other way around, or you can do it this way. Some people they knit right-handed, but they are left-handed. So what we're going to do is, first of all, pop your thumb up under. This is what I do, and bring it up. You can see this is crisscrossing here. So what we're going to do is use the right needle, pop it under there. The right hand is going to wrap the stitch, and then it's here on your thumb. Just pop it on the needle and pull it. Don't pull with the right, always pull at the left. If you pull at the right, it'll go a little jiggly at the bottom. So you pass it under, through, round, and then pop it over with your thumb. Under, through, round, over. Under, through, round, over, under, through, round, over. And continue like this till you say is the required amount of stitches you need. We're going to use 10 today. So we've got 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. Here we've got 10 stitches. And just space them out evenly. Okay, so we're now going to fold forward and knit. So we go, first of all, we start with a knit stitch on the first row. So we go into knit, wrap the yarn, off the needle. Now we're going to purl. So we need to bring this yarn to the front. So you just quite simply bring it to the front, and we go and purl. Now we're going to knit, so we're going to alternate. So we're going to knit and alternate between purl, knit and purl. continue that way. Yep. Bring the yarn forward and purl. So one good tip to remember is the yarn's always at the back when you're knitting. The yarn's always at the front when you're purling. That might help a little bit. So back to knit, forward to purl. And then put it back to finish to get to the end of your row. And we'll continue. This is the second row. I'm going to try and show you your stitches so you can start to recognise them. If you can recognise a stitch, you'll find the whole knitting job's a lot easier. So, if you see a little dash like that, that's a purl stitch. If you see no dash and you see a V, that's a knit stitch. Now, how I remember them is, this is only because my grandma taught me, my nana taught me how to knit. She said to me, that's a man with a V-neck sweater. That's a man with a turtleneck sweater. Well, she meant a round neck sweater. I don't think we call them turtlenecks now. So, that's a man with a V. There's a V. Turtleneck. V. Shall we say round? Round neck. So imagine a round neck. A V-neck, a round neck. A V-neck, a round neck. I'll do another row and it'll come really obvious for you to see now what we're going to do. So what we're going to do now is, that's a purl and that's a knit. So what we're going to do is alternate. So we're going to go and purl into this stitch, knit into this, purl into this, knit into this, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. So here we go. So remember, you think, oh, I've got to knit this for stocking stitch, but we're not, we purl. So we're going to keep our yarn at the front. So all it's got to be here at the front of your needle. Wrap. And there's your purl stitch. Put the yarn back. And you knit. Put the yarn forward. Purl. Put the yarn back. Knit. Forward, purl, back, knit, forward, purl, back, knit, forward, purl, back, knit. And most stitches are normally done with an even number of stitches as well. You can do it with an odd number of stitches, but you need to know your stitches a little bit better. Now, as you can see, it's gone across. So let me show you, try and get that as neat as possible. So you can see that's a purl stitch, that's a knit stitch. See that V? Purl, knit, see that V? Purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. Now they are going to go opposite. I will do a couple more rows and then you'll see how it starts to show up, and you'll start to see the difference between these stitches. So we're going back to the first row, so we're going to start with a knit. This is a purl, so we're going to do the opposite and knit. This is a knit, so we're going to purl. This is a purl, you can see, so we're going to knit. Now, this is a knit. Now, if I knitted into this, we wouldn't get that little dash across. We would just get two knit stitches together, what would make the pattern look wrong. So, let's do it and then you'll be able to see where it goes wrong. So let's knit into this one, we should purl into. And let's purl into this one that we should knit into. and then we'll continue and I'll show you what it'll look like when it goes wrong. Right, so I'm going to go back to doing it correctly now. So into the knit, we're going to purl. Into the purl, we're going to knit. So that's alternate. And what will happen is when you first learn this stitch, you will make mistakes. Everybody does, but you learn by your mistakes. I'm trying to make a mistake for you to realise what might happen. Right, so that's the first row of your moss stitch. We've made a deliberate mistake. Now look, can you see? That's a knit, that's a purl, that's a knit, that's a purl. Now we've got a knit. What happened? That should have been a purl. So there's 2 stitches, 2 V's, where there should have been a V and a round. Then we get along to the purls. You see there's 2 purls together. So that's wrong because that one should have been your knit. So we went the wrong way around there. And that's what will happen. And I can bet your life when you start doing this stitch, this will happen. So that's why, because you've not done the alternate stitch into it. So what I'll do is we'll take this back, we'll pull this back. That's another thing that I can teach you with through this video as well, is let's take it back. So to take a stitch back, as the Americans call it, frog it. I think that's something to do with ripping it out. So we go into the stitch underneath with your right hand needle and just gently switch it onto your right hand needle. And we can get back to where we went wrong, which is these 2 here and the one after. So those 3 are where we went wrong. If you find it easier to pull it all the way back, you do that. But I know now that I've got back to the correct place. I'm going to go back, turn my stitches round, my needles round, sorry. And I can see knit, purl, knit. So now we're going to purl. Right, so this stitch now will be the wrong way around. So we take it off the needle and put it on this way. So now we purl. Because we've turned the needles round on themselves, the stitch has gone on the opposite way. So go, you see, it's wrong, it's the wrong way. So we go into it, pop it back on the needle, and then we knit. Into it, put it back on the needle. So you can see that's going to be a purl, because there's no little there's no little round neck. So there you go. Put that back the right way. So that's a purl, because it's got a round neck. So we're going to knit into it. Just going to pop that the right way. Bring your yarn forward, and that's a purl, because that's a V. Or just think it hasn't got a round, it hasn't got a little dot. Pop it back again. That's a knit. Pop this the right way around, and that's a purl. And then let me show you. They're all correct again. There's no 2 knits together, no 2 purls together. And that's what we're looking for. Each one to be showing as a separate stitch. I hope that's helped a lot to discover the mysteries of moss stitch and how it can sometimes go wrong. And thank you for watching.